And over to you, Sylvia.
Okay, great. So I'll start my presentation with talking about LinkedIn initially. And Alim, you mentioned that two topics. Actually, we have three topics in today's session. One is about LinkedIn, and then CV, and then obviously we'll try to cover a little bit on interviews, and especially answering tough interview questions. So there are lots of things you can do with your LinkedIn profile, but I think I've listed here, and I'll go through some of them that will help you. It will only take you a few minutes really, but will actually give you great results in what you're trying to achieve. So if you've been if you have during lockdown you've lost your job, and you need to get back to normal. Obviously many of you might be and applying for a job, or you're stuck in your job, you're uncertain what's happening with the organization because of the crisis. So it's a good time to start thinking about your career and improving your updating your CV and improving your LinkedIn. So first and foremost, if you want to be found, these are the tools that will help you to be found and searchable. Okay, so one of the key things to remember that you have to make your profile public. What I mean by that, there are obviously settings on LinkedIn that you can easily adjust and make it visible for everyone. So some of the people, you assume that you've got a profile picture and you've got everything, but actually it's only your contacts who can see you. And if you've applied for a job, and particular recruiter or hiring manager looking your profile up, they don't get to see full details of your LinkedIn profile unless you make it public. So that's an important one to be noticed by others. The other important thing is to make sure that you update your profile picture. Again, this also profile picture is also something that once you make your profile public, will be noticed by others. There is a little stat that I've included. According to LinkedIn, profiles with headshots are 14 times more likely to be viewed than those without profile picture. So your profile picture needs to be obviously professional. It should show how confident and successful you are. And so I've got a picture of, we've used for our slides, Gary's, one of our mentors' profile. So some ideas what profile picture should look like. So if you have a half-crop photo of you at a party or a selfie, I'm sure you look great, but it might be the time that you want to, put a professional photo there.
Let me just add one tiny thing. That picture of me was taken with my phone in my dining room. So professional looking, absolutely. And I had a pair of shorts and I had some flip-flops on. So it is possible to do it with everyday items that we have. So if I can do it, I'm sure you can all do a better job than that.
Exactly. So the other good tip is to customize your URL. If some of you who attended my previous session, this was one of the tips I provided last time. I'm sure most of you have customized. So I've got an example of how Gary customized his. I'm sure there are many Gary mailers. So if there's another Gary mailer, you might want to use Gary Mailer 1 or something. This actually helps you to, so sometimes if you don't customize it, actually, the link could be quite lengthy and it doesn't make it easy for internal or recruiters and hiring managers to exchange emails about your profile if it's a long URL. So there are some quick steps how you do it. You just click on your profile, edit it, and then edit right under your folder to customize it. You could add also your middle name if your full name and surname is taken. I'll move on. Location, it's another important point. So you would need to make sure that this is another way to show recruiters or your networks. You might not be looking for a job, you just want to get some businesses, etc., to see where you are. I don't know where you are in which part of the we're obviously in the UK, and as the lockdown is easing, a lot of businesses, people are meeting in parks to do their businesses. So whilst you can't meet for coffee in a coffee shop, but if you're saying to people, hey, I'm in London, and someone is in London, they might give you drop you a message to meet actually for a coffee in the park to discuss some opportunities. So it's a way to take your online profile offline. So the other important aspect is to work on your headline. Now, this is quite important. And quite a lot of people like to say I'm available immediately or looking for a job, looking for opportunities. This is an opportunity. This is a place. It's only like so many. I think it's about 120 characters you're allowed to use. So you really want to make the most out of it. So you can put your current title and position, as most professionals do. But why stop there? You can also add some adjectives that'll help you to stand out. So because I've got an example there from Gary's profile, brilliant example. Not only he's saying what he does as a professional and how he can help businesses, but he also talks some of the personal interests, what he's doing to just bring the fun side of him. Why is it important? When a recruiter is searching on LinkedIn and they're looking for senior project manager, they're not getting your full profile. They're only getting the headline, your picture, and that headline that's coming up. If I see a boring headline, it just says looking for opportunity, and I see others that saying senior project manager, I'm more likely to click on the one that says senior project manager, because it looks like he's because sometimes looking for opportunity doesn't mean that you're actually doing project management. And the other good tip I brought you, so to compare why you need to do that. I understand you might be searching for a job, but as I said, there are better ways to sell yourself. So I brought an example of Apple. Do they say I'm looking for customers? So they don't. They actually tell you why you should choose them, why you should select and work for Apple or go for Apple product. So that's an example that you can compare yourself and to see how you can position yourself in the market. Add a background. This shows some creativity. It highlights your brand. So, you know, if you're doing a lot of business development, I think Gary's background with Handshake is quite good. If you are a photographer, picture of a camera, into tech, maybe computer, you know, it depends what you're doing. So I like, you know, some of the people in HR, for example, and they're doing a lot of diversity and inclusion. There are quite lots of interesting inclusion diversity pictures. So I'm sure there's a lot of people here from the project management perspective. So think about your background because it does tell the story and helps to highlight your brand. Some of the tips talk about the contact information. Now, it's important that you update and check what contact information others can see if they're not your contacts. So if I'm connected with you, definitely I can send you many messages on LinkedIn. You want to be found by people who are not connected with you. What do they see? You'd be surprised that they can only see your profile link and there's not much information. So unless you update it. So the recruiters who only have the access to premium, who are the premium users, can only send emails. And so you might be missing out. So you might want to put some email address. If you feel comfortable and appropriate, put phone number. And if you have any websites, professional or social media. With the social media, it's important that you actually check your social media. If you're looking for a job like Facebook and others, don't include them unless you're into social media, and don't include, and make sure that they're professional if you're actually going to reference them. So be strategic about your endorsed skills. Now, on this presentation, I'm not talking much about the skills, how to be searchable on LinkedIn, but it's quite important. So if you opened up your LinkedIn or created LinkedIn profile maybe 20 years ago and you put skills like you're starting as an admin support and you've moved into being a program director, you certainly don't want a skill as an admin support because you've progressed already. And you're missing out in the key section here. Recruiters will be searching, putting program director in their search box. And then the more the key qualifying questions come up, or keywords repeated in your LinkedIn profile, including your headline, in your about section, in your work experience section, and your skills, the more chances you'll be coming up in the search. So do you have skills that you've been endorsed quite a lot, maybe 10 years ago? Are they relevant to what you're looking for today? If they're not, remove them out, the key skills that you want to be considered for. So this section should do the following: have keywords that will make you more searchable and reinforce the story you're telling and what you can do. So in Gareth's case, he was saying that he's senior project manager, and you can see his skill as a project manager, project delivery, change, and obviously it will be reflected also what he's saying in his headline and also in his about section. So so that's primarily about LinkedIn. Obviously, there's quite a lot of other things you could do. Think about recommendations as well. If you haven't got any recommendation, it's an opportunity to go and start talking to your, asking your ex-colleagues, current colleagues, some people you did business with, or your managers, because the more recommendations you have, the more helps to build your brand. So, and then obviously it's so important to make sure that you have the right wording in your LinkedIn. Some people in the work experience would be putting information about the company. Yes, it's important to put information about the company you work for, but LinkedIn is not your CV, where if you're working for a small company and it's not known to the world, you might want to do a little intro. I will talk about it when I talk about CV. But in LinkedIn, it's a good thing about LinkedIn that people can actually click on the link and see what the company is doing. So use the space to actually talk about why were you there? Why are you in that organization? Why did they hire you? What are you doing? Briefly, and talk about yourself, and remember about the keywords that you want to be searched on. So there's a consistency and repetition of those. That's my big tips on LinkedIn. I may be posing here, so if people have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you, Sylvia. So there are a few questions that came in, both in the public area, and Gary's responded to one or two, and some that have come to me privately as well. So I'll ask you those now. But for the others, while I'm doing that, if you do have any other questions about this slide, the slides you've seen already, please just enter them in the chat and we'll cover those as well. So the first question, if I can ask you this, Sylvia, first, and then we can get Gary's view as well, is that it's interesting what you say about not saying looking for opportunities. So many people are saying this now, so looking for opportunities, and you mentioned that that wasn't necessary. Gary has already responded to this, but what's your view, and can you just explain why you're suggesting this, and whether it, is there a disadvantage for people saying looking for opportunities?
Because if you are actually looking for what is it it says, put yourself in a state of a recruiter. So if you're a recruiter and you have a task to find a project manager, so and they've given you a task to find the best project manager, most of the time that's the key. Now, people who have the LinkedIn access, you have the opportunity to put that you're looking for an opportunity within your the about section, but in your headline should not be the key thing, because unless you have nothing else and you've got a lot of space and you want to utilize it, because you will not be, so this is a place where they're going to search and see, the first thing they're going to see about your profile among thousands of other applicants or other profiles that come up in their search would be the headline and the picture. So if I see in my screen 20 profiles, and I have LinkedIn recruiter license, I will be able to see who's open for opportunities, because LinkedIn gives that opportunity for you to tick the box and you'll come up that you're open for opportunities. What I'm looking for, who has the skill based on the headline information I'm reading. So you might be, someone might not even have time to even click on your profile to see you're looking for opportunities, but who are you, what do you do? So you'll be missing out on that. And then, yeah, just remember that there are many profiles like-minded who are looking for opportunities. How do you differentiate yourself from that pool? Gary, what are your views on that?
I think just to really add to what you're saying here, Sylvia. So what we're trying to do as candidates is make the recruiter's job as easy as possible. Which, if you go back to the previous slide, Sylvia, where I think you had my headline up, I've got 120 characters. I want to show the recruiter who I am, what I do. If I put available or ONO, I'd have been using characters up which I could have been better using for other things. Now, this took quite a bit of time to get right. Previously, I put available, etc. But there's a setting, as you say, the setting that says I'm available will be visible to them. Also, interestingly, the headline is the most important thing. but it's supplemented by the about as well. So personally, I'm going to guard those 120 characters and give as much as I can about me rather than saying available. The fact that you've said you're available in the settings means those on, as you say, the license or the recruiter will automatically see you.
Thank you. And Deepak has mentioned, you can put O&O, short for available, but, you're already covering that already, Sylvia and Gary, in that from your view, that's not necessary. But obviously, if some people do want to use up 3 characters there, then he's putting that acronym there. And Antaraj, if I've pronounced their name correctly, I said thank you to all your inputs. I've changed my LinkedIn profile pic with some creativity. So I'm assuming that they've gone ahead and done it right now, which is great if you've influenced someone. But anyway, so other questions are coming, but let me just ask from some that have already come in. So one person said, I've switched my setting to available, so this point that you were making, but technically I'm still on 3 months notice. So was wondering about this, as in, so they've switched available, but they're on notice. What's your thoughts? Is that okay? Is it okay to show the world that you're available?
Absolutely. So because the recruitment process is long, and I'm not sure if you're a contractor, but I think if you're looking for a permanent role, the recruitment process is long, takes long time, people's diaries, etc. You should be starting looking for a job even before. But I think there could be some sensitivities when, from your employer's perspective, you can say you're available. So definitely, because you don't want to lose your job and then start looking for a job and be available.
Okay. And many questions coming in. So let me move us on. You mentioned recommendations, Sylvia, and to get recommendations from colleagues, etc. One person's asked, where do you see recommendations?
It's on the bottom of your LinkedIn. Perhaps you can go to your settings. I don't know if someone wants to share. If you go to your settings, and definitely you'll be able to see a section there about recommendations. You don't see on your profile if you haven't got any recommendations, but if you go to your settings, ask for recommendations there, and then you'll be able to select from your network people, and they need to be connected to you on LinkedIn to be able to ask for recommendations. And then drop a line there, a message that I want recommendations. So once they recommend you, then there's an opportunity for you to review what they've recommended before you post it on your LinkedIn. So if you're not happy with that, you can go back and ask them to change it. That's a good tool about, it doesn't get posted immediately into your LinkedIn profile.
Thank you. So it's within your settings, I believe, as you said. So another person has asked, is it good to include all your duties and responsibilities, or only the position and summary of one's duty? So how detailed should you make your LinkedIn profile, essentially, and I guess in comparison to your CV?
Yeah, I think duties and responsibility, this is not a CV, as I said earlier, so definitely do not copy and paste from your CV what you're doing. And what value is it adding to you by putting your duties and responsibilities? Always think, what is the purpose of your LinkedIn profile? What do you want it to do? It's your brand in the social and professional network. So you can summarize your duties and responsibilities, especially if you're going to move up the career ladder, etc., and put it in a way. People don't read duties and responsibilities, to be honest. So a quick answer to that is no.
Okay. And let's many questions are coming in, right? But I'm going to have to move us on and do Q&A at the end as well. But before I do that, let's just open it up to see if there's a point that someone wants to make verbally. So, to either get a clearer understanding of something you've said, or a question that they are desperate to ask right now. So if you want to ask Sylvia or Gary a question, please unmute yourself and ask now.
What's the last?
Hi, two people have unmuted themselves. A Malik and Ahmad.
Yes,
Ahmad,
I
yes,
want to understand. I want to ask about the LinkedIn Premium. Is it recommended?
Why would you need LinkedIn Premium? So are you reaching out to people? It just depends what you want to do. So if you're not reaching out to people,
For looking for new opportunities, does it add value having premium LinkedIn?
Sylvia, I can add to that if that
sure,
helps.
please.
Okay, so LinkedIn Premium, what it does is when you look at a role, it gauges where you are in the top percentile. So for example, if I was going to look for a role and I was in the top 10%, it would tell me that I'm in the top 10%, and give me a breakdown of the applicants so far, as in seniority level, what sort of background they've come from, the history to the organization. For me personally, that was one of the reasons I took LinkedIn Premium. But the other thing is with LinkedIn Premium, you get a vast amount of learning opportunities because there's something called LinkedIn Learning. They've got like 12,000 courses, things like emotional intelligence to technology to business skills. So it's a double-edged benefit if you want to use it. If it's purely to find new jobs, if you have LinkedIn Premium, people who are not on LinkedIn Premium can contact you. And that's an important thing. So if someone wants to reach out to you and you're a premium member, but they're not, they can reach you. And also you can also reach out to other people that you're not connected to as well. So you need to gauge whether those sorts of additional benefits are really valuable to you or not. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And there are a couple of go on, Sylvia. Yes, carry on.
I'm just going to add, to be honest, you're not missing out if you're not on LinkedIn Premium. Don't think that you need to have another cost if you can't afford it. So definitely, if you have extra money, you can spend on it. But recruiters most of the time have LinkedIn Premium, and if you just want to be searchable, you need to make sure that you've got your LinkedIn profile updated correctly so you're searchable and contactable. And that's actually important.
Thank you. Yeah, and a few people asked about LinkedIn Premium, and you've answered it, and the training aspect. And Sylvia, I think you were mentioning that if you're looking for a job yourself, you don't necessarily need LinkedIn Premium, as in the recruiters will have it. Gary, you made the point about insights. If you want to see it, fair enough. I'll just make one point on LinkedIn Premium before I then move us on, just because of time, Sylvia, we'll move on to the next slides and we'll cover questions afterwards, is that for some countries, I know America, for example, a lot of the libraries, so if you're registered with whichever library, have lynda.com learning for free as part of the library membership. And lynda.com is essentially LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn Learning procured lynda.com. So if you're based in the US, you get LinkedIn Learning for free through your library probably. Okay, just a tip for those that, where it's relevant. But let's move us on. But I said, we'll come back to all the questions still afterwards. But yeah, next part, Sylvia.
Great. So moving on. So the recruiter has contacted you, and you've got a job, and they're asking you for your CV. So it's important that you've got an updated CV. So I have put together a few tips to help you bring your CV up to date and ensure it's well received. And if you haven't got a job, and in any case you're working, you're not looking for a job, it's important that you still have an updated CV. So the first and foremost, I didn't do this time. If someone attended my session before, I had kind of example of what the CV should look like. But what I will be talking today is about the content what should go into your CV, what's important in your CV, and what order you should put it. So definitely you should have your name and then your personal details like email address. I put there sensible one. Definitely you don't want to have any funky email addresses because it doesn't show your brand as a professional. So think about creating a new email address, contact numbers, location. You don't have to, depending on the countries, I've seen CVs people put their home address and etc. You don't have to show that. So some people also include their date of birth. It's not needed. Nationality is not vital unless you worked abroad a lot, and then your nationality and visa status, if appropriate, are worthwhile to consider. So some people also include the link for their LinkedIn page. Only do that if your LinkedIn is up to date, and also it mirrors your CV. You have to make sure that your CV and LinkedIn talk to each other. There's a tip there, but don't forget that people will be searching on social media. whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter accounts. If you feel like there's a lot of inappropriate or not public information, so make sure that it's set to private. If they are public, ensure that they look professional. So that's on the top of your CV. The next thing that people will need to put in their CV is a personal summary, and some people call it profile. So this is a short, brief introduction about yourself. This is similar to the covering letter, where you can introduce yourself. It's good to say what type of role you're looking for, cover your key skills, and prospective employer would be lucky, why they would be lucky to have you. So if you're putting in a bullet point, it should be only 4 or 5 bullet points, but it's good to do it in a nice little summary. So this section is quite important, that every time you're applying for a job, you need to make sure that it's tailored. Think about the cover letter. You write the cover letter. You don't write the generic cover letter. You write cover letter that matches the job. So you need to tailor the section for a job you're applying. So then you move on into key skills. So this is a section where you would put things like some of the systems and some of the technical skills that are relating to your profession. So again, this is another section. Skills and summary are the sections that you will be always tailoring when you apply for a job. Now, I've seen CVs where people have a full list of skills or half a page of skills and bullet points. There are 20 of them. I can't read. Sometimes a repetition saying that I have communication skills, and then they'll say excellent verbal and written communication skills. So think about it. Is the communication skills quite important for the job? So think about the skills that are relevant to the job. They'll make you stand out. Make sure you put those skills there, so that it's easy for the hiring manager to see immediately that the skills you have that are suitable for the role. And then we're talking about education, qualification, training session. This is section you can also put at the end of your CV. And if you're a recent graduate, I've completed relevant training in the last year or so, then you should put it at the beginning of your CV. But if you are with 20 years experience, probably you would want to include what they would like to see in the first page is actually what you're doing right now. So you might want to put this section at the end. So in terms of the education, always put the latest one and put in in that order, and then go all the way down. Don't inflate results about the trainings. Oh, I'm agile and Scrum. Because unless you've really done it, so you've got the certifications, because in some jobs you might be asked for copies of your qualification and certificates, so you don't want to be in that situation. So that's that. We're moving on, talking about the work experience. What format you should follow, I'm sure you all have it, but simple company name, type of business, unless it's a company everyone knows, like I mentioned when I was talking about LinkedIn. So if you're working for Apple, you don't need to introduce it's a large multi-billion organization or whatever. So you should really talk about for your location, especially if you're applying internationally, to show that, oh, I'm in London, but I would like to get a job somewhere else, or I want to get a job in London, so they know that I'm here. I don't need relocation. So you need to put your job title. And then dates, you just need to put month and year. In this section, you need to briefly include some of the key, so include what you're doing. And then some people, it's important that, and some people do include a section about the key achievements. So I think best way to approach it, again, someone asked earlier about duties and responsibilities. I see quite a lot of people they are copy and paste from the job description. So most of the time, job descriptions are written poorly and they're not accurate what you're doing. So think about it. Does that reflect? Job description might be selling you as a junior, but you actually have more senior responsibilities. So you would want to actually, what your CV is doing is landing you in the right job. So are you actually wanting to do the same type of skills? What are you doing that doesn't show in your job description? Highlight that, maybe highlight as a summary, why were you brought into this organization to do what, more value have you added, and then put in as achievements. what those achievements have, what value they've added to the organization. So they don't go about putting key achievements for every job. If you have like 20-year, 20-year career experience and have changed jobs every year, so you probably want to make sure that you utilize the space, because your CV probably will be about 2-3 pages. Certainly 2 pages, what's recommended in the UK. So you're probably looking to doing that for the last 2-3 jobs. If you have any gaps in your employment, please show that and explain. So whether it was career break, you have extended holiday, also on. So it's important that you're actually honest about the gaps. So moving on into personal interest. I've added there because some people don't know whether to include. Again, depending on the job. So you don't have to fill in the personal interest section. But if you have sometimes if you're doing some skiing, you like enjoy skiing, or someone plays golf, you'd be surprised that your hiring manager into golf or tennis, and it might encourage them. It might be a good conversation starter when you come for an interview. So just think about it. What impression you want to give by them knowing about your personal interest. So then the section about references. I've seen quite a lot of people add their references. Again, depending where you are in the country, I think some countries are quite open, especially engineering people. They're quite really open about disclosing their reference names. Tip here, many of my recruiters that I work with in my team, they would look into junior people's CVs to get their references who was senior. So you're missing out by putting, so your manager might be getting a job because of your job application. So key thing, do not put referencing. And if people are happy and you're happy to put their names, make sure you have people's permission that they're happy to be on your CV rather than to be a reference if someone approached them. So those are the key things that you need to take into consideration when you're updating your CV. I've put some things that you need to be mindful of. Spelling mistakes is the worst thing you want to do. And if English is not your first language, make sure you ask someone to check for spelling mistakes. There's and grammar. There's a link there. Grammarly was a really useful tool for you to have, and it can help you to do it by yourself. The other tip, when you're writing about your work experience or career history, whatever you like to call it, make sure whatever you're doing now in your current job is written in the present tense, things that you've done in the past. So when you copy and paste your job, you probably say driving the leading change or whatever. So you say have led change, driven, you know, or managed. So it's all in the past tense. What have you done? So that's important. Use active verbs such as saved, installed, established, planned, initiated, and so on. So the other key point that you have to make sure that your CV is factual and concise. Unless you're applying for a graphic design job, have a clean, simple layout. So I think Arial sometimes is a good easy to read. A clear font, and then have a white background as well. Some people do have funky backgrounds, and I've seen many social or the comms type of people have their presentations in funky ways. I think, yeah, as I said, unless you're a graphic designer, don't do that. Make sure that it's easy on the eye, and make sure that it's not too small. So I'm not going to say that use 12, but 12 is advisable as a size, but make sure that it's easy on the eye. People can see the key information they need to see immediately, not bored and and drop your CV and not read it. Again, I mentioned earlier, if it's 3 pages, it should be really 2 to 3 pages maximum. If the 3 pages or longer, then page number it with your name and email and mobile number on each page, so that when people are looking through different CVs, and they can mix them up. So that's primarily it, I think. So this was my main tips about the CV. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I picked up some key bits there as well, even though I thought my CV was good already. But yeah, thank you for that, Sylvia. And there are a few questions that have come in now, and there were some questions that we didn't cover before, which are actually related, quite a lot of them around the CV and finding a new job, etc., etc. So there are 5 questions that I've grouped together, which all have similarities to them. I will ask each one, but you may find that actually you cover some of the others with your first answer. And you've actually covered one already, which I'll start off with. But if we could just verbalize it again, please. And the person said, I finished my last job 6 months ago. Should I just leave my last role on my profile or say I'm on a career break? And I know you touched on this already, Sylvia, but what should people do about gaps in their CV and their last role?
Well, if you actually finished your job and you haven't been able to find a job and you're looking for a job, so definitely you want to show why and just, you know, if you're looking for a job, I think it's the last job, right, you're talking about. So unless you're doing some mentoring, volunteering, some I'm saying mentoring because a lot of our group, our fellow mentors are doing. So unless you're doing some volunteering job or you're taking care of your family, etc., and it's relevant, it's obvious that some people are out in the market looking for a job. So you don't need to put for your last job. But if you have any career gap in between the jobs, you have to show what you're doing and what you've been doing while there was a career gap.
Okay. And just to add a little bit onto that, and perhaps Gary, if you could answer this, the person, there's the follow-up point, which is in relation to your LinkedIn profile. So I guess with the CV, maybe it's clearer, maybe you would put career break. But what about LinkedIn? Do people pay much attention there, and would you fill in the gaps?
No, they do. So what they often do is you look at them both in tandem. They'll look at one and they'll look at another. And one of the things to perhaps bear in mind is if you're calling yourself a certain title in your CV, but your LinkedIn reference for that particular time is different, there's inconsistency. But they do that. Where you have gaps, if you're doing stuff, great, you're doing stuff. If you're not, then put the word career break. And there's a question that came up on the Zoom chat, which is, would you be precluded from a role, or let's say from being talked to, if you put the word career gap? Well, not necessarily, because if you've got a lot of experience up to the point when you had the career gap, it's still valid. You will be asked, okay, what did you do in that last 6 months? And so you need to be prepared for that. But it's not just the last role that people look at, it's the whole thing. But the two are looked at in tandem. And that's why sometimes the CV is very more factual, and LinkedIn can be a little bit more personal, but it has to be consistent. So if you're saying you're a project manager in one, or for a certain time period, and yet you're saying you're a program manager, you're going to have inconsistency, and they will pick that up. They will definitely pick that up.
Okay, thank you. So let's just go through a few more of these questions. And so if you're targeting 1 or 2 roles and are out of work, are you best to include both or opt for one? So you know, maybe let's just take me as an example. So I can either do project management or service management. So on my LinkedIn profile or my CV, but let's just focus on LinkedIn. How should I target the role that I'm going for? Do I just focus on one, or do I focus on 2?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, whoever asked this question, because sometimes it really depends what you want to. If you're quite wide and open to many, you might be missing out. And so you have to make up your mind. It's good to have practice to make your CV a bit LinkedIn more generic, and in your CV, so to show both skills if you haven't made up your mind. But in your CV, when you're applying, again, state that you can do both. But you know, when you're applying, tailor your CV in your summary and skills section more to suit that particular area that you're applying for. And if it's service management, then you know, talk about service management primarily. I hope that answers the question. But I think ideally, to make up your mind what exactly you're looking for might give you a better chance in finding a job faster.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, right? And I think you covered it, Sylvia, so I will move us on. But just to summarize, I think the issue for people could be that when it comes to your CV, you're always advised to tailor it, right? And you mentioned that, so you tailor your CV to a job. But your LinkedIn profile is visible there 365 days of the year. And I think the trick is making it generic enough to appeal to 1 or 2, 3 types of jobs, but then tailoring it in your CV. And obviously that's a challenge. Okay, but let me move us on. So the next question was, what's the best suggestion if you want to change a role? For example, from a hospitality supervisor to a payroll assistant. Should I display all my skills that I have of the hospitality industry, or only the required ones for the administrator role?
Yeah, it's a good one again, because I remember when I had to look for front of house support for an oil and gas company, and we had people applying from a hospitality industry, so who had never worked in a corporate organization, and what we were looking there is more to see transferable skills. What skills do you have in your current job are suitable? So I think what you need to do is what I'm going to cover in the next slide is make sure you study the job description that you're applying for and identify the skills in the job description that match your current role, and make sure you highlight those more importantly in your CV. So if it's specifically hospitality, is it about meeting the deadlines and being organized for payroll assistant type of thing? So what payroll assistant should do that you would have, and what value would you would have as a hospitality candidate?
Okay, so yeah, so the skills where they're similar. Okay, I'll just ask one more question for now, and just purely for time, Sylvia, I'll move us on because I know you've got one more section to cover, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. So this question is from Shaymore, who said, my offshore experience on my CV takes 2 pages for each project. How can I manage this properly? Is that acceptable to make separate Word file for each project? And there's a question from someone else as well, saying that their technical engineering type experience means that their CV is 4, 5, 6 pages long. You said 2 or 3 pages. So how do these people manage having a 2 to 3 page CV, and then where do they show the other skills? Is it on a separate Word document? What do they do?
Yeah.
Sylvia?
Well, again, it depends in which country. So again, recently we were looking for very senior head of corporate comms role, and this lady in South Africa, she had 19 pages long CV. So whilst we know in South Africa there are people who are using even 30 pages, so if someone online here from South Africa, so apologies, but we as a corporate organization or other organization may have ruled her out simply because as a corporate communication person, you need to be concise in how you present yourself. I know you're doing a lot of stuff, even so you might have a PhD and you've written so many projects, etc. But it's your ability to concisely put the information at a high level that fits into. So by all means, keep a track of the things you're doing in your projects that you're doing that add value. You might want to bring that when you come for an interview, but are those things going to make you searchable, and would the recruiters that are looking at your CV have time to read it all? So you want to pass the gatekeepers, which are recruiters. So you want to make it easy for recruiters. So, but yeah, you may have an extended CV once you come for an interview, by all means. But again, see the people's time that they might not have time to read it.
Okay, thanks, Sylvia. So we'll have more time for questions at the end, but let's move us on just because we have about 12 minutes left or so. So Sylvia, if you can just carry on, please.
Sure. Because we have less time, so I'm going to go quickly on this one. So what I thought might be, I know the session says that answering questions, but I think it's all about the interview. So what is it that it will take you to be successful in an interview? It all comes to preparations, okay? The more you prepare, the more successful you are. You can never over-prepare, so that's important to know. So what can you do to prepare? You must know your CV, because you're probably tailoring your CV. You might be neglecting what you've written here. You may forget. And so look at what products you've been covering, what services you were offering, competitor organizations, company image, target audience, etc. So then you need to understand the function of the job. You really need to study that and then study the job description at the same time. So important to study the job description along with your CV and identify some of the skills in the job description that match your CV, and prepare concrete examples of your core skills. And so if you are someone asked a question earlier about the the payroll job. So what skills that would match to that job would you have an examples of to say why they should hire you? So so yeah, a lot of preparation. These are the 3 topics that you need to be well. Do research about the company. So and then look at their competitors as well. And the other thing, when you come for an interview, you need to make sure that you are able to build rapport with the interviewer. How you can do that, you know, mimicking their manners and or being finding common grounds, creating shared experiences that you can talk. The first impression is really important. Look at your body language, how you present yourself. I know most of you are probably doing online. Again, whilst eye contact and body language, you think that might not be applicable, but definitely is something that creates a first impression even online. So I've got some stats there that 55% of the first impression is based on the body language. And then eye contact again is quite important. So I'll move on to the next slide. This was more to give you some tips. What I've done in the next slide is I've talking about preparation for the interview. Some of the things that you could do is prepare yourself with some of the commonly asked interview questions. They're definitely going to ask. I've got examples of 5, but you can Google on the internet and find many. There will be at least 10 to 15 questions. Or competency-based questions that they would ask. Always be prepared with scenarios. I mentioned there somewhere in my presentation here that use some techniques like STAR technique, looking at, I'm sure most of you are familiar, and basing your answers around being aware of that technique and answering in that manner. So what we'll also do, perhaps if we still have time, we'll pick maybe at least one question where Gary could answer. But I've got some tips how to answer some of the questions. So tell me about yourself is quite a commonly asked question. So what do you need to focus here? It's not about yourself, what you're doing whilst outside of work. This is, you know, you need to focus purely on your work abilities. You can start talking about who you are, just briefly. Remember, some people take a long time to go through this. Remember, they've read your CV and they have questions based on your CV. So if you take good 20 minutes telling about yourself, going through your CV, you're missing the chances, and the interviewer might be switched off and not ask you questions. So allow them to ask questions, but give them headlines, who you are and why you're here, why you're there to be into. So to come across so that I've got some powerful words there like enthusiastic, hard worker, and driven, etc. Why do you want to work here? You know, you need to understand what are their future plans, and it goes back for you to do your research, their reputation in the industry. So you need to highlight and how much you appreciate them as a company, and that and how your skills and qualities and attributes would be put a good place, good use working for them. So Gary, I think that was the question you wanted to answer. If we did a little role play, would you mind?
The why do you want to work here? That one.
Was that the one? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. So this, previously I've applied for roles and I've done a lot of prep. And one of the questions that I prepped for was the very awkward one, which is, well, why do you want to work here? And so I prepped up on the basis that, as Sylvia said, I made sure I understood the company, understood what they were doing, and understood what they were looking for. So my response, and I'm going to read it off the screen, but obviously I didn't do that at the time, was I'm really interested in the domain in which you work in. I've been interested in flight, because this was to do a flight organization, since I was a little child, and I've always really enjoyed, from being a little child, of being able to go on a plane. So I've shown interest in the domain, and that's really important because they want to understand what motivates you. They would go through a lot of change. So my other response was, you're going through a massive amount of change in the next 4 years, and that is what I enjoy being involved with. I enjoy being involved in challenging environments where there's a lot of change and there's a lot of uncertainty. So what I've done is I've confirmed and I've clarified to them, I understand what's important to them, and I've stitched my response back to them. And then the final bit that I did was they were looking for a project professional who could help upskill and help train other people. And so what I've also said is, look, as you're looking for colleagues who can support and develop others, that's naturally going to fit within my repertoire of skills. That's what I do. When I come along and I make change, I help actually improve and upskill and support other colleagues rather than just doing it fundamentally. So those three areas of understanding the domain, understanding what's important to them, and also what they're looking for, that was how I responded. And that went down very well because I said, okay, well, you've obviously understood about the role. We obviously understand what motivates you, and we obviously understand what excites you. So thank you very much. Rather than just saying, well, you're local, the money's good, and it looks good on the CV. It was all about them.
Exactly. Maybe that's the true answer, but you know, you just need to be political in your answers. That's what we're saying, essentially.
So it's not the money. I'm happy to travel loads of hours and get paid
No,
less.
I didn't say that. No, absolutely.
No, but the
Yeah,
point's well
great.
made. Sylvia and Gary, we have about 5 minutes. There are still more questions. How do you want to kind of finish up?
Yeah, I think I've got some of the questions here. I'm not going to go through them, but if people want me to go through a particular question, I'm happy to do so. Maybe we can open the panel, open the to Q&A, I guess.
Okay. Okay, so I do have more questions that have come in, some really good questions. Sorry to those of you if your question isn't answered. As you've seen in the chat window, you can join the Slack channel and reach out to Sylvia and Gary afterwards anyway. Before I take the questions that I've got through the chat, let's just open it up to see if anyone wants to ask a question to Sylvia, Gary, or make a point, get some more clarity, etc. Let's do that. Please unmute yourself if you have a question for them. Emad.
Yeah. What is the star technique in the last row?
Gary, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So STAR, we use it to make life easy for us. So it stands for situation, task, activity, and result. So when someone says, give me an example of X, what they're looking for is you to give them the context, which is the situation, what that meant you had to do, what the activities were you actually did, and what was the outcome of it. So it could be, you know what, I landed in a piece of work that was really, really unclear. So I knew it was unclear. That's the situation. My task was to make it a lot clearer, remove ambiguity. That was the task I had to do. The activity was lots of meetings and workshops, etc. And the result was I was able to create a clearly defined business case. So I've gone through in 3 or 4 sentences from the beginning to the middle to the end. And that's what they always say, because if you don't give the context and in the situation, then it doesn't give rationale and background to what you were doing. And that's what fun. You'll often sometimes hear it called CARL, C-A-R-L. So they're very, very similar, but it's all about situation, task, activity, and result.
Yeah, it's just rather than saying that what's your greatest achievement today, rather than saying that, I've completed something, or what's your strengths, for example, I'm an excellent communicator. Use an example, bring a situation, and what did you do in that situation? How did that add value, and where you've used your great communication skill to save and have the great results.
Yeah, thank you. And Philippa in the chat added that some people use STAR with the 2 R's, reflection as well. But great question. Thanks, Emad. Any other questions from anyone? Any other points, questions anyone wants to raise? Elisa?
Yes. Hi. How is the best way to answer when they asking you what is your salary expectation? Because I'm always feeling kind of awkward, because you need to put self forward and say, like, I'm expected to be in this kind of bracket. And a lot of the time, especially when you talk with recruiter, they straight away understand if you are suitable for the role, because obviously they already got, a kind of salary expectation in mind. So if I say, like, I'm supposed to be 45,000 and the job specs is 70,000, they're going to shut you off straight away. So
yeah, I think it's important that you do a bit of research about what the type of job that you might be, the type of job you're applying might be getting, people might be getting in the industry, but also what company pays for that. There's a good website, Glassdoor. So you might want to create an free account on Glassdoor and see what people with your skills. So if you're a project manager, I want to work for Apple, I can check what project managers within Apple are paid to have an average expectation. So you can say that, you know, normally I go for 40,000, but I think you're open between 30 to 40,000, and you know that that's how much they say. But you're saying that, you know, I really work for the organization, so I'd be open to consider. So put your expectation higher, but then come down and say 35. So I would be open to if you want to. But so I think that would be the best way of approaching it once you've done your research.
Yeah. Well, and we, Gary and I posted the Glassdoor name in the chat, but I think that's a great point, right? Glassdoor gives insights into what kind of salaries that particular company might pay. So doing that research beforehand, I think is a great tip. So, yeah, great question, great point. Thank you. Other questions? Look, we're out of time, but if there's other kind of burning questions people have, I see Henry has his hand raised. Henry, was that deliberate? Do you want to ask a question, or does anyone else want to ask a question? Please unmute yourself if you need to. Anyone else? Okay, it seems like no one wants to ask a question. Oh, you do? Henry, yes. Yes, go on.
Yeah, I want to know, because most often people ask, when you're attending an interview, they ask, do you have a question for us at the end of the interview? So how could one respond to such questions? After the entire interview, they will say, do you have a question for us? So what would be the best answer for that question?
Absolutely. So prepare lots of questions to ask. And some of your questions could be answered as you're having dialogue. So it's important you have many questions, but it's not the place where you're asking, when am I going to hear from you? How soon you want to hire someone? You know, ask questions that are related to the job, so they can see that you are interested in the job and you're keen to know what their next 5 years is going to look like, particularly within the particular function. So it comes down again to your preparation. You could ask questions about culture. So, you know, what kind of company culture you have, or culture within the particular team you're joining. Again, shows that you are interested in the job, you've done your research, and you're enthusiastic about the organization. Gary, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, there's just one additional question which everybody on this call can use if you're at the interview. So you had the interview, lovely jubbly, and they've asked you questions. And then the last one that I always finish is there anything that you have not heard that will help you to determine whether I'm a really good candidate for this role? Because if they were looking for certain pieces of information which didn't come out, that's your opportunity to say, well, what did I not talk about? And on several occasions, it's where, oh, we were wondering about this, or we were wondering about that. And that's always the last one, because it demonstrates that actually, what have I missed? What is it you're looking for that I've not given you? And it's a good question. It's a really good question.
Great point.
Alan?
Thank you. Yes, Kaleem.
I mean, what is the industry standard or industry norm for the percentage of increment when I'm changing a job? How much should I minimum expect?
Okay.
What's the question,
so the question is, so if Kaleem is, for argument's sake, on £50,000 now, and he's changing his job, what kind of increase should he expect to see in his next job? And of course it depends, right? It depends on the job sector, country, etc. But it's a great question. No straightforward answer. But what's your experience, Sylvia, in terms of the recruitment you do?
I get a lot of people asking that, even my friends, because I work in HR, they always ask me, oh, I've just left my job, how can I ask for more? So it is something that you have to decide if you want the money, or whether you want the money, or whether you want a good job and work for a good company. So if you're really going for money, it will come out, and so make sure that you are actually have the right balance. So it might be that you're looking for a great job, but they don't pay that much. It's what is it that you're looking for? So if you have a lot of money, you don't care, you need to make sure that you're getting no less than this 40,000, then stick to that. So I think you know, it really depends. And I know some friends who are doing that, and some who are actually quite flexible. I hope that answers the question briefly.
Yeah. It's a tough one, right? But yeah, so look, we are actually out of time, but I know you're all enthusiastic to pick Sylvia's and Gary's brain. So I'm willing to allow this session to go on for an extra few minutes. Is there any other questions anyone wants to ask while you have the opportunity?
Oh yeah, is Harshad here?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Just a quick one. I raised that as well. Is there a mock interview that is beneficial? And given that obviously we're not asking to the, we are asking to the internal people, but in terms of who we should ask for to support in terms of asking us questions and then preparing for the actual interview.
Do you mean like a service, Malik, like a mock interview service that you might pay for even to do a mock interview? Or what do you mean, just to understand the question?
No, my question was just to understand how beneficial a mock interview is, and if in selecting a mock interviewer, who would be the best fit who can carry out this session.
Okay, so I guess it could even be like, if I could just plug you here, Sylvia and Gary, in that, look, they both provide mentorship support, right? So we mentioned the Slack channel. You'll get Sylvia's details afterwards. So you can reach out to them or other mentors who could, in theory, provide that mock interview for you. But I know your question is more to do with how beneficial is that. Gary, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, I think so really it's a case of, if you have, let's just say you have a role in mind there, and you think you're ready for the interview. It's about saying, okay, maybe you do reach out to Sylvia or colleagues such as myself or others, and we can walk you through likely. But clearly, as Alim said, it's very likely to be regional. But if it's certainly here in the UK, then that's one thing that we can certainly support. But if it's if there's any regional nuances which we're not able to be aware of, that might make it a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I'm happy to support if it's international level, actually, because I interview from various countries. So I'm happy to pick that one up.
Okay. So thank you. Look, thank you all. Great session. I hope you'd all agree. Thank you so much to Sylvia and Gary and for all of your contributions. Unfortunately, we have to end it there because I'm trying to be strict to keep to time. So I'm just going to stop the recording.